The article Historical Perspectives of Indian Involvement in Balochistan and the Future of China-Pakistan Economic Corridor is written by Agha Eqrar Haaroon. Listen his article now. Indian investment for destabilizing Balochistan has a long history, but this history is yet to be officially documented by institutions responsible for the security of the country. No official document has ever been produced covering over 40 years Indian involvement in Balochistan. Whenever a researcher needs data, he or she has to find data in pieces through press briefings, statements, counter-statements, etc. I believe Pakistan is shy to document Balochistan security crises due to several reasons, but one of the foremost reason is Pakistan's love and hate relations with Afghanistan, because Afghan soil has always been used to destabilize Balochistan, but Pakistan is shy to accept this fact. Whenever a researcher collects data Balochistan, he or she cannot ignore that Kabul was the citadel for launching psychological, perceptual, financial, social, and terrorist attacks inside Balochistan. The passage of weaponry support, equipment support, terrorist training, and terrorist activities leads to Balochistan from Kabul. One should get historical perspectives of Indian involvement in Balochistan and its linkages with an aggravating situation that Pakistan faced after China-Pakistan Economic Corridor was launched. Does there any link between Indian frustration for CPEC and Indian aggressive policy of injecting terrorism in Balochistan? Indian involvement in Balochistan is as older as its Indian success in chopping off former East Pakistan and converting it into Bangladesh. There is no doubt that Balochistan has been at the target of several anti-Pakistan forces because it is the largest province in size, richest in minerals, the least populated, and poorest in living standards. Balochistan is a mixed formation of strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats for Pakistan. Strategically, Balochistan is situated at the crossroad of Central Asia and geographically linked with Sistan and the Balochistan province of Iran. One should remember that Abdul Malik Riji, who was the leader of Jundullah, an Islamist Sunni terrorist group based in the Sistan and Balochistan province of southeast Iran and Balochistan of Pakistan, wanted to establish Islamic Sharia in Greater Balochistan comprising of Pakistani and Iranian Balochistan. Another so-called Islamic group, Islamic State, also known Daesh, is trying to establish Greater Khorasan comprising of Afghanistan, Iran, and Pakistan. The passport of Abdul Malik Riji had visa stamps of several European and Middle Eastern countries when he was captured and executed in 2010 by the Iranian government. Riji was reportedly captured after a commercial flight departed from a Middle Eastern country for a Central Asian destination but was intercepted by the Iranian Air Force and forced to land in Iran. Therefore, one should remember that both Balochistans, both Iranian and Pakistan, are always at the target of international forces, having multiple dimensions: international, national, regional, and local. The strength factors for anti-Pakistan forces in Balochistan had been poverty, illiteracy, unemployment, sense of deprivation, and hegemony of tribal culture. However, this strength is no more there for enemies, and the local population is no more facing a sense of deprivation as the civil and military leadership of Pakistan giving priority to developments in Balochistan. Right now, over 30,000 Baloch students are receiving quality education at various army and FC-run schools and cadet colleges all over Pakistan. Nearly 25,000 sons of Balochistan are serving in Pak Army, and thousands of Baloch cadets are undergoing training at Pakistan military academies. Baloch youth is being inducted in Pakistan Air Force, Pakistan Navy, and other law enforcement agencies. I believe that Baloch youth is resilient, patriotic, promising, and as capable as the youth of any area of Pakistan. One can easily blame for underdevelopment in Balochistan in past to tribal chiefs without finding out root causes. That why did Balochistan fail to get educational and healthcare systems at par to other provinces of Pakistan? There is a popular narrative that tribal chiefs wanted to see their people uncultured, uneducated, and poor, therefore, they did not allow development in their province. This narrative is not totally illogical, but it is certainly oversold and overemphasized. One should not forget that one unit was not announced by tribal chiefs. One should not forget those tribal chiefs of Balochistan did not ask former President Field Marshal Ayub Khan for not placing Balochistan on the map of the first industrial revolution that took place in Pakistan during Ayub's era. One should not forget those tribal chiefs did not stop anybody to provide natural gas to Quetta and the rest of Balochistan for over a quarter of a century, although gas had been distributing to other parts of the country except gas provider Balochistan. There is no doubt that politicians and tribal chiefs lacked the interest to develop their areas because they had no need to develop their province because they had been enjoying cash prizes from the Federation of Pakistan and spending half of their lives in European countries with state-injected money. The question is simple: why did the Federation not play its constitutional role to provide basic facilities to citizens of Balochistan, and why the population of Balochistan was left at the mercy of tribal chiefs? It was the responsibility of the center, Federation, to ensure a due share of socio-economic development in Balochistan. Education, health, and law and order were federal subjects until the arrival of the 18th Amendment in 2010. Moreover, inadequate resources provided by the Federation were also eaten out by over 1 million Afghan refugees living in central parts of Balochistan. I traveled extensively in Balochistan during December 1991. Traveling in remotest areas of Balochistan as far as Taftan border from Quetta was without fear and bodyguards, although late former Chief Minister Taj Muhammad Jamali offered me hospitality and travel arrangements. I decided to travel alone and unguarded to feel this deserted province. I traveled several days in the remotest parts of Balochistan to see the reality of this mysterious land, and then initiated a series of interviews with Baloch politicians, including those who were tagged separatists and survived 1972-73 military operation. I also interviewed the late Akbar Khan Bugti, who stood with the Federation against separatists during the 1972-73 military operation. I remember Akbar Khan Bugti, Taj Muhammad Jamali, Zafarullah Khan Jamali, Abdul Malik Baloch, and several other politicians were of the view that there was strong sense of deprivation among the population of Balochistan due to several actions of the Federation, including the introduction of one unit, a military operation launched by former Prime Minister Zulfikar Ali Bhutto, and inviting Afghan refugees to Balochistan by former military dictator General, Retd, Zia-ul-Haq during Afghan-Russo War. They, politicians, accepted in their interviews that corruption among bureaucrats and politicians was also a reason for the lack of developments in Balochistan. They were of the view that demographical change imposed by Afghan jihad had ruined their society, and they wanted to send Afghan refugees out of their province. Alas, 30 years had passed since I interviewed the Baloch political figures, but Afghan refugees are still in Balochistan with a multiplication factor in their population. Politicians told me that the distribution of resources through divisible pool was unjustified, and development project as well as health and education sectors of Balochistan need extra resources because the population of Balochistan does not live in cities, rather it was spread over, and people live in small pockets in far-flung areas. They had no problem with the Pakistan Army or the state of Pakistan, but they had a problem with the distribution of resources. Interviews were taken in 1992, well before the 18th Constitutional Amendment, and a general sense of leaving alone. Strategists believe that India, being an arch-rival of Pakistan, had a strategic right to invest terrorism in Balochistan after its successful Operation Jackpot that resulted in the birth of Bangladesh out of former East Pakistan in December 1971. Several Indian think tanks in their reports accepted that after achieving results in Bangladesh, India launched spade work in Balochistan during 1973 that resulted in a military operation against those politicians who, according to the then president, he thereafter became Prime Minister, Zulfikar Ali Bhutto, were planning to announce separation from Pakistan. Late Akbar Khan Bugti headed this operation as provincial governor. The situation came under control after military action, but several Baloch politicians left Pakistan for Afghanistan and European countries, and their international funding started by foreign intelligence agencies for further destabilizing Balochistan. Low-profile Indian involvement continued in Balochistan during the 80s and 90s, and then India had its catch when a contra between the Bugti tribe and the then President General, Retd, Pervez Musharraf triggered the situation. Circumstances led to the death of Nawab Akbar Khan Bugti on August 26, 2006, in a cave, and Baloch tribes held former President Gen Musharraf responsible for the death of Akbar Bugti. This incident was a golden opportunity for India to intensify operation in Balochistan. India was successful to generate a situation in which Balochistan started slipping from the hands of Pakistan and separatists were operating freely against the state right till 2013. The residency of Father of Nation Quaid-e-Azam Muhammad Ali Jinnah in Zayara was burnt down on June 15, 2013, by separatists. This event was a turning point in the history of Balochistan, and the federal government realized that things were really getting out of control, and former Lt. General Nasser Khan Janjua was posted as commander of Southern Command. As a major general, Nasser Janjua had participated in several operations against terrorists in Swat and oversaw Operation Ra-e-Haq in 2007. He went to Balochistan in August 2013 when Balochistan was burning. He teamed up with former Chief Minister Balochistan Dr. Abdul Malik Baloch, and both used all possible channels successfully to cool down the situation in Balochistan. They offered a policy of general amnesty for those who took arms against the state of Pakistan. They were successful, and separatists started losing their support among the masses, and the majority of separatists fled to Afghanistan and India and decided to operate from abroad. Meanwhile, Operations RBA's Operation ZA was launched in June 2014 that also helped to bust Indian networking in other parts of the country. Operation ZA was well planned, passionate, committed, and the most successful anti-terrorist operation in Pakistan. While Pakistan was gaining control over the situation in Balochistan, China-Pakistan Economic Corridor came on the surface as the flagship project of the Chinese vision of the Belt and Road Initiative, and this development instigated several regional players as well as international players to jump into the Balochistan arena, and India immediately accelerated its investment for launching a new wave of terrorism in Balochistan. I have reasons to believe that India is not playing alone, rather it has strategic support of other players who do not want to see the success of the Chinese model of development, and China-Pakistan Economic Corridor is now the foremost target of strategic partners. Despite threats and conspiracies China-Pakistan Economic Corridor is facing, it is moving in the right directions but needs a comprehensive strategy to counter propaganda against it and proactive support of parliamentarians, academia, writers, journalists, rather all strata of society of Pakistan. China-Pakistan Economic Corridor is not a project. China-Pakistan Economic Corridor is not a so-called game changer. This is a new era of history. It is a renaissance of Silk Road.